In 2013, Alton Towers opened the Smiler, the first Gerstlauer Infinity coaster. This coaster broke the record for the most inversions in the world with 14. Unfortunately, 2 years later, two trains crashed into each other at high speeds during the course. And worse, 16 passengers were all majorly injured. How the hell did this even happen? This is the story of the Smiler. Anyone familiar with Alton Towers knows about the castle and the gardens. This castle has a rich history, going back to the 11th century, filled with family ownerships and even wars. But explaining all that means would be here for 60 minutes, let's skip to the 1950s when Alton Towers opened the estate to the public. They allowed the guests to roam the castle and the gardens. They also featured a few transportation options to view the gardens. Then in the 1960s and 70s, the ground was redeveloped as a visitor attraction with more additions for guests to enjoy. Then after property developer John Bloom married the daughter of shareholder Denise Bagshaw in 1973, he realized the potential that Alton has as a full theme park. This began to occur in the 1980s with additions like the Corkscrew, the Vekoma Looper, and Black Hole, a Schwarzkopf Jetstar 2. They were filling their lineup very nice for the first few decades, but in the 90s, they would build ambitious attractions with the help of B&M. The first was Nemesis, the unique invert that is incorporated into the terrain. Next was Oblivion, the world's first dive coaster, and another was Air, the world's first B&M flying coaster. Building new, unique, and/or record-breaking roller coasters was the thing that Alton Towers would become known for. Then in 2007, Merlin Entertainment would buy the Tussauds Group, which included the Alton Towers Resort. However, this wouldn't affect Alton Towers' ability to add unique rides. Flash forward to 2011, Alton was looking to break the inversion record. They needed to build this record breaker on a small plot of land that the Black Hole previously sat on. Luckily, they did find a manufacturer that's good with building on tight land. In 1982, Hubert Gerstlauer, a former employee of Schwarzkopf, would leave to form his own company, Gerstlauer. In its early years, Gerstlauer delivered electric and pneumatic equipment for Schwarzkopf, but after Schwarzkopf's final bankruptcy in 1992, Gerstlauer acquired parts of the production site and facilities. This allowed them to build their own amusement rides and coasters. Their first coaster was Jazente Zao at Tripsdrill, a Gerstlauer bobsled. Now this bobsled is not an actual bobsled like Mox or Intamin's. Gerstlauer's bobsleds are essentially wild mouses with more variety and unique layouts. This includes tight turns, twisting drops, and airtime pops. 15 bobsled coasters would be sold, but this coaster wouldn't be what got Gerstlauer notoriety. That would be the Eurofighter. This is a compact thrill mall that's known for its beyond vertical drop and inversions. Think of this as like a B&M dive, but on the cheap because it was designed for smaller parks. The first was Viutsfinnet at Bon Bon Land in Denmark in 2003. This coaster broke the record for the steepest drop at the time. A whopping 26 Eurofighters would be built. The reason it became popular is because not only was it cheap, reliable, and low maintenance, the model is very versatile. What this means is that the Eurofighter can fit into whatever a park is looking for. This ranges from pure cheap thrill coasters like Daredevil Dive at Six Flags Over Georgia to highly immersive thrill rides like Mystery Mine at Dollywood. However, what these coasters prove is that the Eurofighter should not be built at large corporate parks. Unlike B&M dives, Gerstlauers have really low capacity because they were A, designed for smaller parks, and B, small enough to traverse tighter elements. This is why Gerstlauer had to develop the Infinity coasters. This is basically a larger scale Eurofighter with higher capacity for larger parks. The first would be a record breaker at Alton Towers. In 2011, Alton Towers filed permits for a Gerstlauer Looper on the old Black Hole site. Once they got the permits, they started marketing the ride under the code name Secret Weapon 7. This is a similar marketing tactic they use with rides such as Nemesis and Air. It is lucky they got approval fast because of their very strict height restrictions. Now they went crazy with the marketing here, with slapping a smile face logo everywhere in both the park and the UK and online subliminal messaging. Then in January 2013, Alton Towers announced the Smiler. The Smiler is the first Gerstlauer Infinity coaster and breaks the inversion record with 14. The last time someone broke the inversion record was 10 in Thorpe Park's Colossus. Alton Towers really wanted to smash the record, so they demanded 12 or more and they ended up with 14. The other thing known about Smiler is the dark theme. Like holy shit, this coaster is creepy as f***. The theme is that you're stuck in a mental asylum where the staff will run a series of tests on you to force you to smile. This is done via marmalization and correction, which explains this weird mechanical spider structure in the middle of the ride. And as a bonus, the Smiler features a wicked and creepy soundtrack. The layout consists of the following inversions. Passengers would board the 16-rider trains and pull down the over-the-shoulder restraints. The ride begins with a hidden barrel roll in the dark. Then you climb the 98.4 feet, 30-meter tall lift hill. The first element after this is a sweeping right turn into a corkscrew to ground level. Next is a whippy dive loop, followed by another dive loop into an airtime hill into the Batwing. Then you hit another corkscrew into the brakes. But the ride's not over yet, because then you hit the vertical lift hill. Yes, there are 2 lift hills for both capacity and for guest comfort. Next is a sweeping turn to the left into another corkscrew to ground level. This heads into a sea serpent roll, followed by an airtime hill into the cobra roll, after which you finish the ride with a double corkscrew and the turn into the station. This completes the 3,838.6 feet, 1,170 meter track. That's a lot of inversions for one coaster, so you think the ride would be smooth sailing. But the Smiler ran into technical difficulties in its early years. For one, this coaster kept getting delayed because Smiler constantly ran into technical issues. The ride did eventually open on May 31st, 2013. Another was that the trains for some reason kept valleying, likely due to either low weight or high winds. Another was that the lift hill kept getting stuck, leading to evacs on the ride. Now, all these issues do not warrant any danger, as all coasters run into these issues at one point or another. However, a much more serious accident would take place on June 2nd, 2015. Before I present the following, what I'm about to describe might be too disturbing for some people. If you're one of those people, proceed with caution. Let's continue. On June 2nd, 2015, Smiler was operating as normal. This was despite running with winds up to 46 miles per hour when the operators were advised not to run it over 34 miles per hour. Shortly after 1 p.m., the ride triggered a fault and the ride was closed for a little bit. They cleared out all the guests in line and maintenance was rushed over. It was at this point when the operators were told to add a 5th train. Keep in mind the ride usually only runs with 4 trains, but the 5th was added due to the high crowds level that day and figured to do it when it was closed. While the 5th train was being added, operators sent an empty test train to check if it was okay to operate. This empty train failed to complete the incline and a warning system was activated. Engineers successfully resolved this issue with the empty train. However, due to issues with communications, the engineers on site had no idea a 5th train was being added and began to restart the ride. With the ride getting to reopen for the day, they sent another empty test trains to check for normal operations. However, this empty test train valleyed again in the Batwing. I should have mentioned this earlier, but all the trains that got stuck was always in between the Batwing. I don't know why that's the valley spot, but because this train failed to make it through this element, it rolled back and rested at the bottom of the Batwing. Keep in mind the operators in the ride were not aware a vehicle got stuck on the ride, so they loaded 16 riders on the next train and sent it on the track. But then the loaded train stopped at the top of the lift because the ride system detected a train in the circuit that wasn't clear. This is what's called a block zone, and is designed for both roller coasters to run at high capacity, and more importantly, prevent collisions like the one I'm about to describe to even happen. This is why such few roller coaster crashes even occur. But someone clearly f***ed up the bag hard because of what happens next. For some reason, nobody ever told the engineers a 5th train was on the track. So they checked the locations of the 4 they believed was on the track and didn't see the 5th one lying on the course. He later stated that he felt pressure to minimize downtime on rides. He and a colleague overrode the safety warning and the loaded train continued on the track. This train then violently slammed into the empty train stalled in the valley. Most witnesses would describe it as a horror scene similar to a car rear-ending another car into a car crash at 90 miles per hour on the freeway. As hundreds watched in panic, the 2 cars rocked between the track, with the front row trapped between the crash barriers of the train. It took 20 minutes just for the first 911 call to be made, and the trapped passengers sat stuck on the track for hours before they were able to escape. Miraculously, no one died during the crash. But unfortunately, everyone on that train was heavily injured, with 4 needing medical attention and 2 needing to get amputated. These injuries would result in internal blood loss, shattered knees, and punctuated lungs. This accident changed the lives of the 16 people riding the coaster forever. Right after this, Smiler, Saw the Ride, and 2 other coasters from Chessington closed for an investigation. The latter 3 quickly reopened, but Smiler closed for over a year for the investigation. Alton Towers also closed for 5 days following the accident as a result of this. The investigation concluded that human error was the cause of the collision. When you look at the chain of events that led to this unfortunate event, you could say that humans are f***ing stupid. First of all, why did you run the coasters at higher winds than it was intended? Most roller coasters can't even handle 25 miles per hour, let alone 46, because this causes the coaster to get stuck in between the valleys like what happened here. Next, why didn't anyone notify the engineers that they added a 5th train on the coaster? Next, if they knew it was very windy, why didn't they just add test dummies to add weight on the carriage? And finally, why the f would you override a safety warning? If there's a safety warning, you go check what the issue is. You do not override it. How stupid are you? Now, I understand that humans are not all stupid. However, we humans tend to make a lot of mistakes, and this mistake had severe consequences. As a result of this accident, Alton Towers would be negatively affected by this, and to this day, they work to recover. Their attendance and revenue dropped big time that year because of the Smiler accident. The park's owner, Merlin, was fined £5 million for failure of health and safety rules over the crash. They also rejected the idea of putting pressure on employees to keep downtime at a minimum over safety. This loss resulted in the closure of many rides, and the recent lack of investment into Alton Towers reached a new low. New safety measures were in place, and compensation claims continued to be filed. All references to correction and normalization were also removed. Nobody set out to hurt someone that day, but the impossible had happened. The Smiler did reopen in March 2016 with new safety features in place to prevent this from happening. Many people still remember the accident, but no further incidents happened on this ride. But this accident was not only felt on in every aspect of the business that day, but also the employees who called this place home, as well as the passengers that were injured. And that day was a devastating one that the park has been working hard to put behind them. While Gerstlauer continues to make compact thrill coasters and awesome family coasters, this collision is sadly what this record-breaking coaster is now known for. Thank you all so much for watching this video. This video is part of my series where I discuss the accidents that happen on amusement rides. If you enjoyed this video, which if you watched at the end it means you did, you can help by giving a like. Also, please consider subscribing and turning on notifications. It only takes 5 seconds to do, and that motivates me to make more content in the future. This is the Coaster Flood, riding out.